Good morning, everyone. We are back with another free pre-market broadcast. Wherever you are watching, make sure you hit that like, subscribe button, follow button, whatever it is. The more likes and stuff we get, it encourages us to do more stuff for free. Just before we get stuck in as well, this video is for information and education purposes only. These are not buy and sell recommendations. If you're happy with that, then please keep watching. And just as a reminder, this is the exact same process we go through every single morning at Investors Underground at 8:45. So if you like what we have to say, then come check us out. All right, cool. Let's get stuck in. Josh, take it away.
Yep. First name that I'm looking at is CoreWeave. I just think that there could be a potential, little bounce off of, the open. After yesterday's kind of washout capitulation. I'm not saying that this bounce has to last, but if NVIDIA kind of holds up and the semis hold up, this is the most recent, IPO, and it's holding above its IPO pricing still, even though we're in this kind of nightmarish market. And I like how it's holding, and I like how much volume it's trading. So I'm going to be looking versus how it trades versus the close, which was 49.85. I'd like to maybe see a test of support and then take out the opening range highs if this is going to go. But you do have to be careful. If the markets are extremely volatile here, and the Qs can kind of swing around a lot, so you got to keep those on your screen, and you got to be mindful of what the indices are doing, because they're going to affect every stock that's related to the market pretty much. Nike, I just feel like this name is so hated, especially with all the tariff news. People have fears that this company's probably not going to recover, and they might be right. But I feel like it's so hated right now that I kind of like the way that it put in a little potential capitulation bottom on Friday, and didn't make a lower low on yesterday. So I'm going to be watching versus 56.50 area, and maybe we get a little gap fill up into the 62s. So I'll definitely be watching Nike. If the market turns over and the Qs just kind of give this all back and go red, I'm going to be looking at the combination of SMST, which is a proxy of being short some MSTR, and I want to see these 480s level get taken out from yesterday. But I definitely am going to keep an eye if markets roll over on the short of MSTR, and you could either trade that by trading the common on MSTR or by longing the SMST, shorting the common on MSTR and longing the SMST. But something to note about the Qs, the 5-day ATR of this is 21 points. So that's just, that's 5% intraday volatility. So just be aware of that when you're sizing into something, because if you get caught on the wrong side, things are moving so fast that you could be upside down quick. And on small size, that's not a problem. But if you're overdoing it, and you stay stubborn, the day trading problems can turn into bigger problems than they have in the past when the VIX is above 30 and 40. So just a couple of words of caution there, and I'm going to leave it there and pass it to Emil.
Yeah, I'm here. Morning, everyone. So I'm going to keep an eye for a bounce for the time being in the market. I'm leaning towards some sort of a continuation today, but more or less keeping trying to keep an open mind and don't get over biased overall. So I'm expecting to see some follow through today, but we shall see tomorrow or the next day. Also, very volatile environment, and any news can, the tape can flip and roll over lower. So with that in mind, I'm looking at NVIDIA today. Ideally, that is going to give some dips versus pretty much 95-ish area. So any weak open or slightly push and then some dips versus this area mid-morning or after 10 a.m. I'm going to be interested in a long trade. As you can see, it turned some volume here yesterday, so, and 2 days ago, and that's the reason I'm looking at this one. Also looking at PLTR, more or less same plan here, looking for dips versus 45-ish, 44. I'm sorry, 75, 74 area for a bounce trade. Same goes with Nike. Like Josh said earlier, similar plan here, since been pretty, I mean, held pretty well in the past few days. If today it's going to manage to give some dips versus green to red area, then I'm going to be interested in a bounce trade. Again, only if at any given stage there is going to be some dips, I'm going to be interested in getting involved. Other than that, not really interested to chase an upwards move. So either is going to have that move or I'm going to pass all these trades. Anyway, so Robinhood, same thing. As you can see here, week open versus 34 for a long trade. And that's pretty much what I'm looking on the big caps. And as you can see, yesterday being very volatile and the volume quite big. If, like I said, if the environment is going to be choppy and any news is going to come up, so very easily can turn. So keep that in mind. Anyway, so on the other side of the spectrum, I'm watching NAOV. This one, it's having a big gap so far, and as you can see, it's going sideways. So I'm expecting to see some sort of a blow off at the open and then see if it's going to stuff there. Ideally, it's going to break pre-market highs in order to be interested in getting involved on the front side. Other than that, I'm just going to watch, see if it's going to break the trend at any given stage, and then obviously interested to short pops on the way that this is small float type of trade. We have seen BJDX yesterday how behaved until gave up, so being pretty choppy. It's I'm going to have a similar approach. We shall see if there is going to be any pops after the open or stuff, and if it's going to reclaim after 10 a.m. Be mindful, because these type of trades can go all over the place. And the last one, it's GLXG. Again, this one already faded quite a lot, but still the range is there. What I'm going to watch, being a China name, these can be pretty trappy at times. So if it's going to push to 20-ish at any given stage, maybe around 10 a.m., that would be something that I'm interested in getting involved in a short. So other than that, not really interested to chase it down here unless it's going to give those pops. So yeah, pretty much that's it for me today, guys. Good luck, and I'm going to pass it over to Jura.
Hey, good morning. So, just some brief SPY thoughts, and what's going through my mind is we get this very deep sell-off, huge volume, 3-4 days. This is pretty much what, I mean, it wasn't off the top, but this is what Quantum has done recently. We have RGTI and IONQ, QUBT, and what tends to happen is that they rally back into moving averages. So I wouldn't be, I'm expecting that we get another day or two push into this, either into this 536 level, which is the pretty much gap fill from here, and some keys from back during this consolidation in June to September. And then not far off, if we do, push through there, then the 540s or wherever this moving average comes down to at the time. But I do expect some sort of continuation on this bounce, but I don't really see much out there. A lot of the names that have been coming down, I mean, they don't really look like they have too much to give. A lot of chop on the way down, and not as big and deep as the SPY pullback was. I still don't see much. I don't want to trade these bounces. I'm interested more, I guess, in these names that have been kind of hanging around, which aren't many given the market, obviously, but they're smaller cap, or this CoreWeave recent IPO. It pretty much had this multi-day push after this IPO, and I believe, or I'm not sure, but I believe Newsmax had something to do with that. Just that interest in the IPOs, which we've seen, and then we get this 2-day pullback, the decreasing volume. Yesterday was a good opportunity to get long, and I think today, if yesterday's highs can hold, then potential day 2 continuation. Microvast, just a smaller cap that's pretty much been in consolidation for almost 6 months now, and just putting in this little bit of a range, so that 190s has been key. If we could break through there, then I'd be interested to the upside. And then SURG, another one that gapped up, pretty much holding well, the moving averages respecting. So I want to see that build over the 230s level. And then TCRT, I don't love how wide the range was yesterday, but I mean, soaked right at that moving average. And on Friday, the idea was a pullback into 250, 270, and then a bounce. So we got that yesterday, and then I'll just look for that build over 3 for potential continuation. But overall, I think we still need time for names to actually, push back and then start to build and reclaim some of the moving averages and really set up. But I don't see anything that vigorous like we've seen with Quantum, which is what I like to look for when I try to trade those deep sell-off bounces. So I'm not looking for any of that. I'm just keeping an eye out on the dailies that have shown pretty much strength throughout this entire pullback and move, which is not many. So that's pretty much what I got. Not that big of a watch list, and I'll pass it over to Ariel.
Hey, thanks, Judah. Good morning, guys. So there are some things that I am interested in, and yesterday, obviously, it was a good little rebound trade in TQQQ, and just kind of seeing the futures markets acting well here. And obviously, just absolutely gigantic volume on the TQQQ. I mean, pretty much dwarfs everything forever. I don't think I've seen a larger volume bar ever. So for the TQQQ. So just kind of getting a little bit more on the stock level. There are stocks that, kind of are doing a setup that I am familiar with, which I like to call the undercut and rally. And, basically I'm looking at this left side low on something like Netflix, which is the 854 area. And I'm just going to see if, in the morning we get any pulls, that would be the ideal scenario. There's basically 2 scenarios that can play out here. Is you get a break over prior day high, and then that can be an entry, using low of day. In the ideal world, we get like a morning washout, maybe 860s or something like that, 870s. And then, thinking about that 854 level from back in March as an undercut and rally area, that would hold. And then, maybe we can get, this oversold rally. Netflix was one of those names that just never really got beaten up as bad as other names like, in the semiconductor space or Google. But speaking of Google, very similar setup, except the pullback, is kind of getting back to September levels, 147.21. Again, in the ideal scenario, we get a pullback, right in the morning, and then thinking about that 147 level. Where you just pull back, you get a little more granular on the 5-minute chart, and then you kind of start to look for the bounce in that area and, expecting that area to hold. So kind of thinking good above 147s, bad below kind of deal. NVDA is another one that, has my interest, again, going back to that September level. So effectively 101 or $100.95. So call it 101. Do we pull back in the morning, begin to hold that level, reclaim it, and then, for a potential rally back into the 50 or the 200 day? I mean, that would be a pretty ideal scenario for the bulls. Baba's another one. Obviously, it got gotten beaten up recently. China being, one of those countries where tariffs were being implemented, and you can see this morning how this thing had a very subtle gap to fill, and this was going back to February 6th and February 7th, and this morning it actually did fill that gap. So I am kind of this is actually a pretty ideal scenario. It's like you fill that gap. And, now do we hold that gap? So basically as a support gap setup, this will be interesting for me to see if the Chinese equities can begin to recover. And then basically the last things that I'm watching that I mentioned, on the watch list for IU is, gold. Gold is actually one of the very few sectors that is completely clean. It's still in an uptrend. It's still above its 50-day. It's well above its 200-day. We've been in a year-plus long trend, and this is just another pullback, just like we had, in October, where this thing pulls back and builds out for a few weeks. And then, this could just be another pullback that builds out for a few weeks. But, we're bouncing at the 50-day. If the 50-day is going to be respected, some of the gold miners, AGI is one that while gold was still pulling back yesterday, AGI found its own bit of support yesterday right at the 50-day. So, some of these are kind of bucking, gold, its underlying assets trend. So these are kind of already finding support at the 50, while gold itself was still putting in a red day yesterday. So for me, that's a bit of a good sign. And again, a morning pullback into the 50 or a takeout of prior day highs. I personally don't want to kind of chase that breakout over prior day high. I would rather wait for a pullback into that support level. And then GFI being the other one. Again, very similar thoughts, very similar setup. And, if these are going to find support on the rising 50-day, while gold does, I don't see why these trends can't continue. Usually when a chart gets over the 200-day moving average and you get its first test of the 50-day moving average, it tends to be a pretty good buy spot, for fresh uptrends. But again, we'll see, and we'll take it one day at a time. Ideally, a pullback, into the 50-day, and then we begin to hold, similar to what we did yesterday. We might not get as deep of a pullback, but let's see if kind of that $20 area will hold, and then we'll look for a smaller time frame entry from there to trend join on the bigger picture. So that's all my thoughts for today, and we'll see you guys in the room.
Perfect. Thank you very much, gentlemen. As Ariel just said, if you are interested in joining, my details are on the screen. Yeah, come check us out. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the room. Trade well, everyone.